Maria, you're going to bring Joe over?
Yes, I am.
Okay, it's 5 o'clock. I'm going to wait until we've got Joe coming in right now. And I will go ahead and call the meeting to order in 1 second as we see that he is here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is 5 p.m. right now. Welcome and thank you for joining us to the Danville Town Council meeting. It is March 16th, 2021, a day before St. Patrick's Day, and we thank you all for spending your evening with us. Marie, would you mind doing the roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Fong.
Here.
Councilmember Stepper.
Here.
Councilmember Storer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Arnerich.
Here.
And Mayor Morgan.
I am here. Marie, are there any announcements?
Okay. Yes, and I'm just checking here. One moment. Okay, this meeting is being held by teleconference only on Zoom, and a recording of this meeting will be made available on the town website following the meeting. To provide live comments during the meeting, use the raise hand feature in Zoom. When the mayor opens up that item to public comment, then raise your hand. Your name will be announced and your audio enabled. You're asked to state your name for the record and limit your comment to 3 minutes. And I want to just take a minute to say that, for example, there is an attendee who keeps raising their hand when I put it down. And that is because I'm lowering the hand because we'd like you to raise your hand when we get to the specific item. So for example, when the mayor announces for the good of the town, that would be the time to raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you know, we have a special privilege today, and I'm really excited to say that we're going to actually have a scout and his sister lead us today in the Pledge of Allegiance. And so at this time, I'd like to welcome Jack, who's representing Troop 815, and Penelope Diamond. The Diamond children are here today to have us do the Pledge of Allegiance with them. So take it away.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. And I want you to know that I don't think there's a single council member that has not stuttered yet. Pledge when you're put on the spot. So you did an excellent job. It's so nice to see both of you. And I can't wait to see you both in person real soon. So thank you so much for being here tonight, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that was wonderful. I wanted to ask, are there any changes to the order of the agenda this evening?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 4. Item number 4 is for the good of the town. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the town council on a topic that is not listed this evening on our agenda. However, please understand, as a council, we cannot discuss or take action on topics raised under the good of the town. Or you may refer those to staff and we can discuss them at a follow-up meeting or place them on the agenda if we so wish to do so. I will now open this portion up for the public comment. Are there anybody, or is there anybody that wishes to address the council this evening on an item that's not on the agenda?
Yes, we do have one hand raised. The name is Veronica Benjamin.
Okay.
And Veronica's audio is now enabled, and I'm going to share my screen to start the timer.
Okay, so Veronica, you have 3 minutes. Thank you for joining us this evening, and the timer is displayed on the screen. So welcome, Veronica.
Oh, thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So to you, the Honorable Mayor and City Council, as you know, my name is Veronica Benjamin, and I was born and brought up in this town of Danville, where I also still live. I want to address the response of one Danville police officer to an individual allegedly throwing rocks off of the 680 overpass, who later produced a small knife and refused to follow orders, presumably due to mental distress. I must add that I regularly interacted with this individual, Tyrell Wilson, over a 4-month period and never felt threatened by him. Many Contra Costa County bus drivers also report positive or neutral interactions with him. As a community member, I am horrified and concerned about the response of the Danville Police Department to people of color behaving erratically. There have been other instances when people have behaved erratically in our town, such as the day before the incident in question, when police spent 4 hours talking to a presumably white individual out of suicide, unsure of whether they were armed or not. Thus, I have reason to believe that had Tyrell Wilson been of a different color, other, less severe means would have been used to subdue him. Particularly, I am concerned with Officer Hall's repeated lack of judgment and use of lethal force, which led to the death of Vladimir Arboleda less than a block from where the town council meetings usually take place. I communicated this concern regarding Officer Hall to Chief Shields in the summer of 2020. As it is exceedingly rare that any police officer discharge their service weapon over the span of an entire career, it is deeply disturbing that Officer Hall has found it necessary to use his weapon against 2 people of color suffering mental health crises in a 2.5-year span. Every profession must maintain standards of excellence, especially when that profession concerns the very important task of preserving the safety and well-being of an entire community, transient residents included. I ask you, as the mayor and city council members, to do your part as our representatives and hold the police accountable for their actions and demand the expedient release of all body camera and other footage. Especially, I ask that you put pressure on Police Chief Alan Shields and Sheriff Livingston to fire Andrew Hall, who can surely find another career and contribute to the community in other ways. As a person of color and community member in Danville, this issue is of acute concern to me. Thank you for your time and for your service on this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Are there any other statements for under the good of the town? Okay. I'd like to also mention that the Contra Costa Office of the Sheriff and the Contra Costa District Attorney Office are currently investigating these circumstances surrounding the incident, Veronica, and the town of Danville also supports full transparency in the ongoing investigation, and we will be sharing information as it becomes available. So thank you for your comments. We'd like to go ahead.
Madam
Yes.
Mayor, I think Sandra Moody had wanted to make under the good of the town an announcement.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so that's what I said. Is there another, are there any
Yeah,
other
she's there.
good of the town re?
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
have another hand raised. Sandra Moody
Hi, Sandra.
is with us, and I will go ahead and start the timer and share the screen.
Hi, Sandra. Thank you for being here this evening. I understand that Candace could not be here this evening, so we're happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
I'm thrilled as well. Thank you, Marie, and extra appreciation to you, Mayor Morgan, council members, and staff for the opportunity to address town council. Tonight, I am thrilled to share that the town of Danville and the Senior Advisory Commission is developing an age-friendly roadmap that outlines goals and strategies that will enhance Danville's quality of life and support families of all ages from 1 to 101. And the age-friendly roadmap will help guide the town in serving our community, in particular, adults and seniors. Our essential strategy is to help people remain in their communities where services that reflect ever-changing needs and their preferences. That said, it's our mission to expand the quality of life for the very young, the very old, and everyone in between. And with your help, together, we can learn more on how we can accomplish an enduring age-friendly Danville. Therefore, we invite you to take a few minutes and complete the brief online survey, which is located on the Town of Danville's website under Live Locally. The survey is available 24/7 through Friday, April 2nd. Also, we are hoping to reach as many people as possible, and therefore would appreciate if you could share this survey with friends, neighbors, and family, as well as the business community and visitors of all ages. And most importantly, I'm going to say that again, most importantly, please communicate the value of their input, that their insight will have a major influence on shaping the future of our beautiful community. In closing, town staff and the Senior Advisory Commission are grateful for your time and support in this important endeavor in creating an age-friendly community where intergenerations can age together, play together, and thrive together. So that said, if time permits, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure we will be sharing that information as well. It's wonderful to see what all of you are doing on our Senior Advisory Commission. Marie, are there any other public comments or for the good of the town?
There are no other hands raised at this time.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to item number 5, which is our presentations and proclamations. And I'm hoping by now that Larry has his audio and visual up and running so that we can see him. Larry?
He is with us. I don't see that the audio is enabled. So perhaps by the time you're done presenting the proclamation.
Sure. So Larry, we wanted to go ahead and take this moment to present you the proclamation making America Red Cross Month for 2021. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas March is American Red Cross Month, a special time to honor the kindness of our volunteers and neighbors who aid families in need every day in Danville, across the United States and around the world, as they carry out the organization's 140-year mission of preventing and alleviating suffering. And whereas despite the difficult challenges presented by COVID-19 pandemic, people have stepped up to help others in need, whether it was responding to this year's record-breaking wildfires and hurricanes across the country, rolling up their sleeves to give blood when our country faced a severe blood shortage, or supporting local partners to address current COVID-19 needs in our community. And whereas last year in Contra Costa County, local families affected by 115 home fires relied on American Red Cross volunteers for comfort and hope, providing emotional support, addressing immediate needs, and helping family recover emergency financial assistance or community resources. Contra Costa County residents donated 17,350 units of life-saving blood. 3,459 local community members took classes to learn the skills to save lives, and 719 military members and their families received support and services and humanitarian as was provided internationally. And whereas nearly 200 years since the birth of American Red Cross founder Clara Barton, we dedicate this month of March to all of those who continue to advance her noble legacy and support the American Red Cross mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Danville Town Council does hereby proclaim the month of March 2021 as an American Red Cross Month in the town of Danville, and encourages its citizens to support this organization, its noble humanitarian mission, and our hometown heroes who have helped people in need. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands this 16th day of March 2021, and it is signed by the entire town council. Larry, thank you so much for being here today. I wanted to personally say that sudden disasters lead to sudden decisions, and it's forcing people that they had to leave and evacuate and leave everything behind. You all have stepped up when we had the wildfires up north and down south. You all were there, and you also, some of these things we can't even imagine in a possible situation and having to be placed in that situation. But you've given us the comfort, and the Red Cross has given us the comfort and knowledge to know that, you know, we still matter, and that we can make it through disasters such as what the state of California has gone through. So, you know, the 8 minutes, I think one of the things that is on, I think it's March 24th, Larry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is the giving day to match funds up to $75,000. So looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And I want to say it's a pleasure to serve with you on the Red Cross.
Yes, I appreciate that. I assume you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Mayor Morgan and the town of Danville Council. I really thank you for supporting the American Red Cross. My name's Larry Fong. I'm an external relations liaison with the Contra Costa County Red Cross. Not only is this Red Cross month on the March, this month in March, but this is marks the 1-year anniversary of when the coronavirus officially became a global pandemic. While facing unique challenges presented by the coronavirus outbreak, Red Crossers around the country continue to work with compassion and determination to help people in need every day. Like many organizations and corporations, we've had to shift how we deliver our mission because of COVID. We've created new protocols to help keep everyone safe in this environment. This has been a team effort though, so we haven't worked this by ourselves. We worked with government and public health officials to ensure the safety of our community and workforce, and while still providing help and hope when disaster arises. During this time of special social distancing, like these Zoom meetings, and fortunately I couldn't get my visual going, we're now providing some relief services virtually, including mental health support and financial assistance. Instead of opening shelters, physical shelters, that are normal to most people, what they see as a Red Cross shelter, we're prioritizing individual hotel rooms and dormitory style rooms to help make sure people have a safe place to stay if they can't return home after a disaster. We've also put in place additional safety precautions in case we need to open emergency shelters at the request of local officials if hotels and dormitories are not an option. Working with local public officials, we set up a health screening process for everyone coming into a disaster or coming into a shelter because of a disaster, provide masks, add additional space between cots, and used enhanced cleaning and disinfecting practices. To ensure the health and safety of blood donors, we've implemented additional precautions at blood drives, donation centers, and began contactless thermometers, face masks, increased spacing, added enhanced cleaning procedures, and donations by appointments only. In addition to relief and comfort for disaster survivors, the Red Cross is also offering a virtual family assistance center to support families struggling with the loss and grief due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, offering information, referrals, and other services to support families in need. To support vaccination efforts, Red Cross volunteers have assisted at 4 sites in our county. Our community counts on American Red Cross for help every day and supporting our community at the heart of what we do. Our work never stops, even in the middle of a pandemic. Help can't wait. On behalf of the community, our volunteers, and those we serve, we want to thank the town of Danville, the city council, and their staff for standing with American Red Cross. I thank you for recognizing the Red Cross, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Are there any other comments from the town council? Larry, thank you so much for restoring safety and hope for the Red Cross. And I believe that Karen Stepper has a comment to make.
A very quick comment. I just wanted to express my appreciation to Mr. Fong because he's, as we all know on the council, he served so many years on our San Ramon Valley Emergency Preparedness Committee. And he brings a great deal of experience from all of the events and emergencies he has attended both now and when Mike Szymanski used to take off for every emergency there was. So we appreciate your efforts and your skill level, Larry. Thank you for sharing sharing those with all of us.
Thank you, Karen.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Larry, for being here. Please send along your thank you also to all the people that you work with. We so appreciate it. Thank you.
I will. Thanks.
So we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 6, which is our consent calendar. The consent calendar are items that are acted with usually with one motion. Is there anybody from the council that would like to pull an item off of consent? Is there anybody from the public that would like to pull an item off of consent? Marie?
There are no requests for public comment for the consent calendar.
Okay, I'd
Move
like
the
to bring it-
consent calendar.
Okay,
Second.
so I have a motion for items 6.1 through 6.6 and a second. Can we do the roll call vote, please?
Yes. Councilmember Fong,
Aye.
Councilmember Stepper,
Aye.
Councilmember Storer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Arnerich,
Yes.
and Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Consent calendar was approved unanimously.
All right, let's go on to item number 7, which is communications. And item 7.1 is a Contra Costa Mosquito and Vector Control District Board of Trustees report by Danville Representative Randall Diamond. And he is going to be sharing a PowerPoint with us this evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, thank you, Mayor Morgan, Vice Mayor Arnerich, and esteemed members of the council. It's my privilege to be sharing with you today the 2021 update for the Contra Costa Mosquito and Vector Control District. I have the privilege of serving as chair of the Personnel Committee and am a member of the Executive Committee. Just to give you a sense of our agenda, I'll be quick. I'm going to give some background for new members of council and members of the public who aren't familiar with the district. And then I'll share 2020 data for the town of Danville for the 2020 season and wrap up by answering any questions that you might have. So with that, let's jump into it. As a matter of background, in the 1920s, the waterfront areas, mostly East County along Pittsburgh type of area, there was an infestation of mosquitoes. Schools had to close. There were some major real estate issues and areas became uninhabitable. So the citizens voted and created the Contra Costa Mosquito Abatement District in 1927. At that time, it was strictly the waterfront. And then over time, the district came to encompass all of the county. However, it's not part of the county. It's an independent special district. The district has 23 trustees. So when you were going through your roll call, I was laughing. If you can only imagine a roll call of 23 trustees. Each city appoints a member to the district, and then the county appoints 3 seats that are at large. The Contra Costa Mosquito and Vector Control District's mission is to protect the community from mosquitoes and other vectors of disease. And it's funded through property taxes and a special assessment. And this is important. So the special assessment every year, an engineer's report is brought to the Board of Trustees, and it shows what the benefit is. So in homes and businesses that are in the waterfront area out toward the Delta pay a higher per parcel fee than we do in the town of Danville. In Danville, you actually see a line item for the mosquito control district, and it's $4.74 per parcel. All right, a little bit about the science of mosquitoes. There are 23 species of mosquitoes in Contra Costa County. And in addition to the nuisance that I had outlined earlier, which led to the creation of the district, mosquitoes can also transmit yellow fever, St. Louis encephalitis, and a primary concern to us in Contra Costa County is West Nile virus. There's also this whole vector business. And I have spent many years explaining what vectors are. And for members of the public and new members of the council, I will share with you what else the special district covers. Ticks, in fact, it's an interesting time. This is tick season, and it's important that you check yourselves and your pets for ticks if you're out and about. The district does species identification because regular ticks don't pose a threat for Lyme disease, but deer ticks do. Rats and mice are also covered by the district, and I'm not going to go into too much detail on this unless there are questions at the end. The district has services related to skunks and also ground nesting yellowjackets. So not honeybees, not yellowjackets that have their hives up above ground, but ground nesting are known to be more aggressive. And so that's part of the special district's purview. Last slide around background, and I think that this is very important as well, is the concept of integrated vector management, IVM. And I realize that up here it starts with vector surveillance, but I really think that you should be looking at the public outreach and education, because that's the cornerstone. That's making sure that individuals, people here in this council meeting, know what actions they can take to mitigate mosquitoes and other vectors. That's a big part of it, integrated vector management. Then it goes to surveillance. So the scientists are conducting surveillance year round, but especially during the mosquito season. And that leads to vector control methods. And you see here, physical, biological, and chemical. So it starts with reducing environments for mosquitoes to multiply, like physical components, biological. And then last resort is chemical. And there are very few applications in a year. And I'm not aware of any that have occurred in Danville. When it does happen, Discovery Bay is usually the location for that. So just know that the district is looking for all ways to avoid fogging, just as a point of reference. Here's your operational overview, and this is specific to 2021. As you might imagine, the district has made adjustments to accommodate COVID-19, and protocols are in place and have been operating successfully. The district operates with an $8.6 million budget. It was a balanced budget last year, and we actually came in under the balanced budget number. I don't know why this is moving on me. In the midst of negotiating with represented employees, and that's been very interesting to work with SEIU and the representation that they have. And so it's been, as chair of the personnel committee, something that's been challenging, but also we're obviously looking for the best outcome for the members of the public and the members of the represented union. And then finally, the district, we continue to support the general manager and as she continues to optimize the district. So here are the number of service requests from 2019. And I was thinking with COVID, people were going to notice more incidents happening in their neighborhood, and that we were going to see increases in service requests. And you'll actually see that most service requests were down in 2020 during the 2020 season. A little increase on rats and mice service, but mosquitoes, skunks, and yellowjackets are down. So I'll speak to each of those. Here, this is a great image of the reason that there's public outreach, because this is where mosquito can lay their larvae, and when the pupae grow, that's when they turn into mosquitoes. So the best thing that we can do in the town of Danville is dump standing water. As it pertains to the decrease of mosquitoes, staff believes that came from better care of properties with people being at home. So they were able to dump the standing water. As far as West Nile virus goes, it did appear in the county, although it was in East County, mostly found in traps. There were 4 cases of human contraction in East County. 3 probably were from mosquitoes, locally transmitted, and 1 was probably not transmitted locally. And then Zika virus was something that was top of mind last year. And I just wanted to give you a quick update on that, which is Aedes aegypti is the mosquito that carries Zika, and it started in Southern California. And if you watch a map over time, you see it slowly coming up the state. It hasn't reached Contra Costa yet, but it's come as close as Yolo County, and it has definitely made it as far north as Contra Costa. So something for you to know. And then for members of the council and members of the public, just a reminder that in Danville, our primary concern, and we do find mosquitoes with West Nile virus, but the other is our tree hole mosquitoes. And I had shared this with you last year, so apologies for the redundancy, but it's important. Mosquitoes will lay eggs in the dry rot of trees like the one that you see on your screen, and then it can dry out and it will just wait for the next rain. It's kind of like you know, when you get sea monkeys and the little dried sea monkeys. So it's crazy. But they'll lay in wait, and then when the next rain comes, they'll rehydrate and reanimate. And this type of mosquito is the type that carries heartworm, which is obviously bad news for your dog. As far as Yellowjackets are concerned, again, I find the science fascinating, and so I hope that it's okay that I share some of the interesting things with you. In 2019, there was quite a bit of Yellowjacket activity in Danville and around the county, and that was because it was a mild winter. But the 2020 winter was cold enough that during a cold spell, it will kill a number of overwintering Yellowjackets. And so staff believes that's why we saw a year-over-year decrease in ground nest and Yellowjacket service calls. And then, as mentioned, the rat and mice service was up nominally. So that, since it's so close, there's not a lot to look into there. I would have expected the same for skunks, but they actually decreased by almost 50%. And I'm thinking maybe it's because last year's presentation, I talked about how important it is that citizens of Danville remove fruit from trees, that bird feeders are not accessible, and that pet food and water bowls are not left out overnight. So hopefully everyone's paying attention to that, because we don't want skunks that can carry rabies. In summary, hopefully you enjoyed this, I did. In summary, it was a moderate year for mosquito and vector activity, and now everybody knows what a vector is. And the district successfully adapted operations in response to COVID-19, and we remain protected as the district fulfills its mission to protect the community from mosquitoes and other vectors of disease. With that, I will entertain any questions that you might have.
I love your reports. Is there any questions from council? If you want to stop sharing your screen so I can see everybody, I will ask if there's any question. Oh, that's a nice one. Let's talk about that, please. Newell.
Randall, thank you again. As the mayor just said, really well done. We've learned more since you have been the representative of Danville than I think the sum of all the years that we've been around here. And the updates are really good. And it's interesting how COVID has changed. More people are at home. Sort of predators have a tendency to stay away because there's more activity that people are in and out. Can you just briefly give a high-level view? What services are available to Danville residents in relationship to skunks?
Sure. So when it comes to skunks, if they are in the area, the district will come out and do an assessment. In fact, we had this in our community last year where skunks were coming out of the gutters and were ripping up lawns. So an inspector came out and did some surveillance, looked for opportunities for habitat, and then provided information to everybody in the community. Councilmember Fong, I don't know if you remember the door hanger, but that was in response to let everyone know what are the mitigation techniques for keeping a skunk out of the area. If a skunk does take up residence in a member of the public's domicile, then the district does do some trapping. You could probably count on two hands the numbers of trappings that it will do in a year. And when those skunks are trapped, they are euthanized because it would be against county health regulations to release them elsewhere.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that update. Well done.
Robert.
Great. Randall, as always, I appreciate the presentation, appreciate the passion, the energy. Thank you for going all in on this. There could be a lifetime position here for you if you would consider it. You've set the bar so incredibly high. Thank you for just really representing the town of Danville and doing such a good job sitting on that board. We are really well represented. Nicely done.
Thank you. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Karen.
Quickly, Randall, I just wanted to tell you that thank you very much for the fact that, you've been serving on the Personnel Committee for some time, and you had a big change of who leads the agency, and that requires the Personnel Committee be active and offering more suggestions, etc. So it's still a very effective committee and community asset, and so we thank you for being one of the big reasons that's true.
Thank you.
Dave.
Hey, Randall, first, great presentation. Second, I'm really glad you're part of our community, our little pod, because trust me, we've learned so much as a community on how to deal with these little, we call them varmints. But they do become nuisances. But I think what we've also learned is that we don't do things instinctively, like let's throw pesticide at it, or let's throw something that might kill it. There is a proper way to address this type of issue, and whatever the varmint is for the year, I would strongly recommend, and I know you're doing it, which is a lot of good outreach to the community, because the more we're educated, the more we're informed, the better, and I guess the more proper we're going to be able to address these issues both today and going forward as well, because they're not going to go away. They'll continue to come back, and each year is going to be a different, different opportunity for whatever it may be. But keep us informed, keep your community informed, and let's all do the right thing when it comes to addressing this issue.
And I would just add, Councilmember Fong, that it's the most humane thing that we can do, which is habitat reduction, because then we don't have to deal with the issue. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Really good point. Really good point. Well, once again, Randall, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your children with us this evening and having grace us with the pledge. We appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you soon in a real live meeting, not just on Zoom. So thank you for being here this evening, Randall.
And thank you.
All right, item number 7. Let's see, we're going on to next is a report by Mark Isola, Danville's representative on the Contra Costa Transportation. I'm so much into mosquitoes right now, I can't even speak. So the Contra Costa Transportation Authority Citizens Advisory Committee. Mark, thank you for joining us this evening. We're so happy to have you here. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Morgan and Town Council members. I am pleased to provide you with a short summary of the topics discussed at the Contra Costa Transportation Authority's Citizens Advisory Committee meetings over the past year. At the January 2020 meeting, the primary topic was a presentation regarding the Clipper Card system, Clipper Card program, and a next generation system has been created with installation to begin late 2021 and hopefully be installed completely by the end of 2023. One of the main goals of that new Clipper Card function will be functional access across all modes of public transportation. Our next meeting was not held until May 2020. At that meeting, we had presentations by the Transportation Authority employees regarding the projected impact of the COVID-19 on Measure J sales tax revenue. And then, of course, along with that came the proposed interim measures to prepare for the reduction in Measure J sales tax revenue. Obviously, they're still working all that out and determining whether there are actually a decline in revenue. But at that point, they're proposing interim measures to address it. They also had a presentation regarding an electric car transit system where they would be fully operational on electric cars doing transportation throughout the county, which is a system far off in the works, but just being discussed at this point. At the June meeting, we started on the review of Measure J Growth Management Program compliance. So as you probably know, one of the primary functions of the Citizens Advisory Committee is to review the biannual Measure J Growth Management Program compliance checklists as submitted by each of the 19 Contra Costa jurisdictions and the county. So each jurisdiction submits its growth management program compliance checklist to the Transportation Authority, and that GMP checklist gets its initial review from the Citizens Advisory Committee. So in June, we started that review process. First was the county's 2018 and 2019 growth management program compliance, and also the city of Martinez. At the September meeting, we reviewed the city of Pinole, the city of Brentwood, and the city of Antioch. Again, so with those, what they're presenting doesn't have a significant impact on the town. But in December, the meeting, we did then discuss the city of San Ramon, and obviously their growth management program is important to the town of Danville, both in terms of the bike routes that they're creating, which are extensions off the town of Danville bike routes, their housing program that they're doing in San Ramon, and then both what they're doing for commuters, both in terms of residents leaving San Ramon each morning and returning in the evening, as well as non-residents going to and from San Ramon for jobs, including at Bishop Ranch in San Ramon, and to the extent that those persons are, going through Danville and the effect they have on the town of Danville. In December, we also looked at the city of Pittsburgh growth management program compliance. Every jurisdiction that has submitted so far, they had shown that they had met the compliance, and each one was approved by the CAC. In January, our meeting was canceled, and at that point, I knew that I would not be able to make the February meeting, so I tried to give notice of that to our persons who would be setting the agenda for February's meeting. Unfortunately, my request was either missed or I'm not sure, but so when the town of Danville made its presentation at the February meeting, I was not present. But I know that it was approved. I know that the town showed that it was in compliance with the 2018 and 2019 growth management program, and it presented a nice package that was approved by the CAC at that time. At that same meeting, the city of Oakley submitted its package, and then there was also a presentation about the county electric bikes rebate program, in which the county was providing a rebate of either $150 or $300 towards the purchase of an e-bike made after October 1, 2020. And they allocated rebates throughout the county. There were 12 rebates allocated to the town of Danville, and all 12 have already been claimed. So we're like one of three cities or towns in the county that have already used up all of their rebates. So obviously there's a big desire to buy e-bikes in the town of Danville. Just generally, obviously we've all seen the effects of COVID on the transportation in the county. Obviously there's fewer cars out there, especially during the commute times, and no one knows for certain yet what the long-term effects will be. I'm assuming there are several individuals at the Transportation Authority as well as at the town who are closely monitoring those developments. So it should be fascinating to see how those play out, as well as the effect that this has on the Measure J sales tax revenue going forward in the future months and years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for that report. Are there any questions of Mark? Mark, thank you so much once again for being here. I believe Robert has a comment.
Yeah, let me just comment, because we know how much time it takes to volunteer on an advisory committee. Thank you for going all in, as I mentioned to Randall, and literally becoming a student of the game as well. We really do respect the CACs on both Transportation Authority and County Connection. So really, really nicely done for you to participate at that level. And thank you for all the good work representing the town of Danville. And lastly, it's actually, I think the Citizen Advisory Committees, it's a wonderful way to look at the entire region and not just the town of Danville and some of the things that are going on outside of Danville that, for one reason or another, we're not a part of or doesn't affect us as much. But really good job. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Right, and I wanted Dave Fong.
Oh, okay. I was going to defer to Karen. I believe she had her hand up, but Karen, do you want to go ahead?
No, that's okay.
Dave.
Thank you.
No,
Okay.
Dave, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Thank you. Great presentation, and this is great. I've learned so much from what you just described. I do have a question, and maybe you could highlight a trend, which is EV and EV charger stations. In your meetings and discussions, are you tracking the percentage of growth in the electric car or electric vehicle area or hybrids? And secondarily, any implication or impact on the communities when it comes to EV stations and the need to install more?
So that is part of the growth management program compliance checklist that each jurisdiction submits to monitor that and then just to keep growing in that area. We have not had any specific discussions about just tracking the EV vehicle purchases and that sort of thing, but certainly that is a continuing item that they're trying to push for each jurisdiction. And I know that certainly in the town of Danville, there's probably certainly more e-vehicles than we have charging stations, so it's a continuing item. And then you want to get those as well at the employment hubs such as Bishop Ranch, so those commuters can charge their vehicles. So it is mentioned, but we have not had a specific focus at a meeting yet on that topic.
Yeah, it'd be fun to trend the growth, because we'd like to all get ahead of the growth as communities.
Yeah.
And so, your information will be very insightful as we move forward.
Yeah, especially as you see more and more of the car manufacturers making promises that they're going to shift entirely to electric vehicles, 10, 15 years out.
Yep, exactly. Thank you.
Okay, Karen.
I just want to thank you, Mark, for coming on as the new member representing us. We haven't always been represented for some of our committees. And so we have like at least 6 transportation agencies on which the council serves. So having you here as an extra link is really important to us. So just wanted to thank you for being there and for interviewing with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Thanks so much for being here. And on behalf of all of us, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on then to item number 7.3, which is our police department report by Danville Police Chief Alan Shields. It's always fun to have Alan on. Alan, are you here?
He was there.
He was here. He is here. I see him. There he is.
Thanks for your patience. I was just trying to get the video started on that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Morgan, Vice Mayor Arnich, and Town Council members. And thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I was originally on the agenda to speak with you tonight about the 2020 annual report, which is always a favorite topic of mine in light of recent events. And instead, I would like to cover 3 items this evening. I will provide an update on the officer-involved shooting, a brief annual report update, and a general response to some of the questions that I know we've been receiving via staff and the town council via email, phone calls, and through our social media channels. I'd like to start by kind of taking a step back and actually providing a full statement as to what we know so far, so that those that may not have been privy to previous releases, they have what we know. The Contra Costa County Office of the Sheriff and the Contra Costa District Attorney's Office are continuing to investigate an officer-involved shooting that occurred in Danville on March 11th. We understand how an event like this can affect in a community. On March 11th at about 11:48, police dispatch received several calls from motorists regarding a person who was throwing rocks off the Sycamore Valley overpass onto Highway 680. Danville Police Officer Hall arrived on scene and contacted Mr. Wilson in the area of Sycamore Valley Road and Camino Ramon. The officer approached the subject who was standing on the street. As the officer tried to talk to him, the subject pulled out a folding knife and then opened it. The officer ordered him to drop the knife several times. He then advanced toward the officer, who discharged his weapon, striking the subject once. The fire department and the ambulance were called and responded to the scene. The subject was taken to the local hospital. The Office of the Sheriff and the Danville Police Department wants to reassure you that the community, that there will be a thorough and transparent investigation into this event. As the Contra Costa County Sheriff and the District Attorney's Office are continuing to investigate this per the county-wide law enforcement involved protocol, we will not be able to provide any further comment until information is officially released. Secondly, on the agenda for tonight is the Police Department's 2020 annual report. It will be published on the Danville Police Department website and will contain information about steep reductions in crime and traffic collisions, outreach efforts, and a summary of key events throughout the year. Please take your time to review that document and feel free, as your schedule permits, to reach out to me and ask any questions about that report. Third, I'd like to cover some information. I'd like to take this opportunity to broadly cover that information that is relative to questions that I know we've been receiving either via phone, email, social media. And it's very important to me that people who have questions or comments about the police department know that I am hearing them. Most of the questions are centered on law enforcement training and response. The Contra Costa County Office of the Sheriff manages a webpage that contains information about how the Office of the Sheriff trains its employees, specifically sworn employees. The information contained on the page will answer many of the questions raised by the community and will provide a greater understanding of the types of training our staff receives. A link to the Sheriff's Principal Policing page can be found on the main landing page for the police department under the quick links section. Thank you for your time.
Joe Calabrigo.
Just a, if I might, Madam Mayor, members of the council, a question or just perhaps a clarification in perhaps in light of the comments that the speaker, Ms. Benjamin, made under good of the town. Chief, as you're aware, the council released a statement yesterday indicating that they are fully supportive of transparency in the ongoing investigation and into the officer-involved shooting and sharing information as it becomes available. Will the sheriff's office be releasing records, body-worn camera footage, and other relevant information as this moves forward?
Yes, Joe. Body-worn camera and other videos and records and reports will be released as appropriate.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Thank you for the update, Chief Shields. We really appreciate it. Thank you. We'd like to go ahead and move on to item number 7.4 right now, which is our legislative updates by Assistant to the Town Manager, Diane Friedman.
Good evening, Town Council. I'm pleased to join you tonight to present this legislative update. The last day to introduce bills for the 2020 legislative session was February 19th. And as of this date, there were 2,369 bills introduced between the state Senate and the state Assembly. This total includes 396 intent bills and 381 spot bills. Intent bills and spot bills are introduced as placeholders for future language. They are used as a legislative tool due to the fact that the California legislature has a hard deadline for introducing bills, and sometimes legislators need to use these as placeholders for future language. They are, as such, they need to be introduce a placeholder and develop or finalize their substantive bill language. Per council's direction, this overview tonight, per council's direction, will provide an overview of our legislative committee, our Tri-Valley Cities Coalition, our legislative outreach program, and a federal legislative update. And per council's direction, we continue to be actively engaged in legislative advocacy efforts that are aimed at protecting and promoting Danville's best interests. These efforts are driven by two primary considerations: continuing to uphold our mission of delivering superior municipal services that makes people's lives better, and increasing an unprecedented level of state legislation and regulation in areas that have previously fallen under local control, especially with regards to state legislation related to housing. The Tri-Valley Cities Coalition, which includes the cities of Livermore, Pleasanton, Dublin, San Ramon, and the town of Danville, who have joined together to work on issues and advocate on behalf of our region at the state and federal level. Together, our coalition represents about 365,000 people, the equivalent of a top 10 city in California. The coalition creates a stronger voice in Sacramento. The coalition works strategically to align on legislative issues. Coalition activities include quarterly meetings with mayors, city and town managers, and staff members to discuss legislative matters, annual visits with elected officials in Sacramento, meetings and phone calls with legislative staff, position letters on pending legislation, and an annual advocacy trip to Washington, D.C. The TVC Coalition works with state and federal advocacy firm Townsend Public Affairs. As our voice in Sacramento, Townsend Public Affairs helps to drive alignment of our efforts, promotes strategic relationships, and constantly communicates our legislative positions to elected officials and staff. We continue to actively suggest language to change and shape legislation that impacts local control and our ability to make decisions that are right for Danville. In 2018, the coalition developed a strategic framework to drive more focused effort and improve strategic advocacy at all levels of government. The TVC legislative framework is reviewed and updated annually as warranted to reflect current priorities. This year, those priorities will continue to include affordable housing and strengthening local land use, as well as COVID-19 relief and recovery. At our upcoming meeting on March 23rd, the TVC meeting, including mayors, managers, and staff liaisons, will review the 2021 framework updates and present them to the mayors for approval. As of this meeting, the coalition has taken formal positions of opposition on SB 9 and SB 10, of which the detail I will go into later in this report, and is in the process of finalizing a letter of support for AB 988 for submittal this week. AB 988, the Mental Health 988 Crisis Hotline Bill, implements the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline National 988 system in California so that people experiencing a mental health crisis can receive immediate care from trained professionals. This bill would designate crisis hotline centers to provide intervention through voice call, online chat, and text 24 hours a day. Additionally, these call centers will be able to deploy crisis services such as mobile crisis teams, stabilization services, and ongoing care. The call centers will work with the National Suicide Hotline to provide immediate support for individuals calling in crisis. 988 funding would follow existing 911 law, which imposes a surcharge to fund current 911 costs. On March 29th, the TVC Coalition will participate in a joint meeting with Senator Glazer and Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan to discuss legislative issues. The Town Council Legislative Committee meets monthly. The committee consists of 2 members of Town Council, Mayor Morgan and Council Member Stepper, supported by the Town Manager and the Legislative Staff Liaison. The committee reviews and discusses upcoming legislation, develops positions, and makes recommendations based on each bill's potential impacts to Danville and its residents. At the February 23rd meeting, the committee discussed updates to the town's legislative framework. The Legislative Committee also reviewed 11 bills, including the 5 bills that comprise the Senate Pro Tem Building Opportunities for All Housing Package, SB 5, SB 6, SB 7, SB 8, SB 9, and SB 10. The committee took action on 3 bills. SB 9, Atkins, this is a component of the Senate Pro Tem Housing Package that would eliminate single-family zoning in California. The bill would allow by right lot splits in single-family residential zones that would ultimately allow for creation of up to 6, 8, or potentially 10 units when combined with state accessory dwelling unit law. As mentioned earlier, the town opposes this, and as mentioned earlier in my report, the TVC Coalition has also taken an opposed position on this bill. SB 210 Wiener was reviewed. This bill would require the destruction of automatic license plate reader data within 24 hours if it does not meet hot list requirements and auditing of these practices. The town of Danville has taken an oppose, and as mentioned earlier in my report, the TVC Coalition has also taken an opposed position on this bill. The third bill we took action on was SB 271, County Sheriff's Eligibility Requirements. Existing law specifies that a person is not eligible to become a candidate for office of the sheriff in a county unless that person has advanced certificate issued by the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, or meets a combination of certain educational degree and full-time salaried law enforcement experience required as specified. This bill would repeal those eligibility provisions and would make other conforming changes. This is the other bill that we opposed. As far as the review of the other bills in the legislative package, we wanted to wait to align with TVC. We will be re-reviewing those bills at our next legislative committee meeting on Tuesday, March 23rd. And at that point in time, we'll probably be taking more positions. Our legislative committee meeting agendas are posted and available under the meeting agenda section of our website, and we encourage our residents to participate and follow along with these meetings. On the federal level, the $1.9 billion federal stimulus, HR 1319, the American Rescue Plan Act, was signed by President Biden last Friday. The total aid for city funding is $65 billion with individual city allocations based on population. The town of Danville allocation is approximately $8.3 million. The funding will be divided into 2 installments to be received 12 months apart. The funds allocated to Danville will be sent by the federal government to the state as a bypass within the first 60 days of enactment of the law. The state will have an additional 30 days to distribute the funds to each city. So we should be looking at receipt of those funds in June. Use of the funds is targeted to offset revenue losses due to COVID-19 and necessary infrastructure investments like water, sewer, and broadband technology infrastructure. We are still working on clarification of the process to be used in determining whether cities will need to certify how the funds will be used, how use of the funds will need to be documented, and the types of projects that fall under necessary infrastructure. The TVC is monitoring the Biden administration plans to invest in transportation and infrastructure and the return of federal earmarks. Federal earmarks are projects or program funds provided by Congress without approval of the executive branch. The logic behind earmarks that are placed in bills is that our congressional representatives are better able to prioritize funding needs in their own states and districts. The TVC coalition is gathering a list of earmarks for submission to our federal elected officials. As far as outreach, we continue to build out our legislative advocacy outreach program so that Danville residents can learn more about the types of legislation that are impacting their town and our council's ability to make local decisions that are best for Danville. Residents can learn more about our advocacy work by reading the town's legislative framework and information posted on our website under legislative advocacy. Following our legislative committee meetings that take place the fourth Tuesday of every month at 9 a.m., committee agendas and meeting summaries are posted on our website. Following each monthly update provided to the town council at your second meeting of each month. And the quarterly newsletter that will be published in April will contain an article about housing legislation for residents to learn more about what is happening in Sacramento and how housing legislation will impact Danville. Most recently, the town's webpage has been updated to include more information about housing legislation the state has enacted to spur housing development in an effort to create affordability. Further, on April 2nd, the new Town Talks program with Mayor Morgan will feature the topics including housing legislation, the regional housing needs allocations, and the housing element update, upon which, again, housing legislation has had an impact. That concludes the legislative report, and I will turn it back over to Mayor Morgan for council questions.
Thank you for that very thorough report, Diane. We so appreciate it. Robert.
Wow. Yeah, very impressive. Yeah, I know you're not born with this gene to learn how to just learn legislative updates like this. This is something you spent a lot of time with. On top of everything else you do during the day, you took on the legislative component. So we're really in good hands. And Diane, I really thank you for that solid work. That's really good work.
Newell?
Yeah, thank you. A big thank you to Diane and particularly to Karen and Renee for serving on the committee. One of the suggestions I had, as you know, we have a robust license plate reader system, and we have a policy in place, which has really had a lot of peer review by other agencies in terms of the use of the data, how long we keep it, and the custody of that. I'd suggest we are on record to say no, because 24 hours means effectively all those systems are worthless. You could never use them. It takes longer than that just to go back through the videos to investigate a local crime. That we actually offer and send them our policy on the retention and the use of that materials as a suggestion that this is a reasonable policy that has been in place. It has served well. It's been utilized in court cases, things like that. Maybe as a suggestion, because as you know, that particular senator has a tendency to do what he wants and doesn't listen to other folks, that maybe we can nudge him with a support. The last thing I'd say, the only reason why there's 2,369 bills is because they put a limit on the number they can pass, and they maxed out that limit. It's just staggering that there are that many issues every single year that need to be solved. But thank you, and thank you to all that are working on this.
Yeah, I wanted to mention also in reference to your comment, Newell, about the license plate readers. We had discussions about that as well, and we do plan on sending them the information and our follow-up as well as you know, what we do for our license plate readers. So it's really important that they understand, because another mention of the fact that I remember 4 or 5 years ago going up to Sacramento and trying to advocate to get them and to get funding for it. And a lot of the cities and communities around us did not want to do it. And we were the poster child for that. So we're doing it right. And we're trying to make sure that they understand that it's got to be something we need to have done. So Dave?
Yeah, and thank you, Renee. Diane, great presentation. And as Noah puts it, it's really tough. And I know Robert said the same, which is how do you filter out 2,000 plus bills and get to what's relevant and important for our community and our residents in the community. My comment is regarding AB 988, Rebecca Bauer-Cann's bill. I think it's a great bill. I applaud her for promulgating this bill. I believe that in the longer term, it will have value addressing the mental health issues that we predict and I think conjecture that may be a problem post-pandemic. I would strongly recommend and advocate that Danville take a much more proactive position. You know, one of our pillage strategies is protecting and promoting the health and safety of our community. And we've had a couple of incidents over the last few weeks that demonstrate that mental illness may be associated with those situations. And we really don't know what post-pandemic means to our community or the implications to all ages within the community. And I believe that we need to begin having ongoing and continuous discussions addressing mental illness and what we as a community fully engaged need to understand when it comes to both the trends, the demographics of who's being impacted, and most importantly, how do we address going forward to really not deal with the problem as much as explore solutions that we can get in front of what's going on so that we don't have some of the effects that that result in, you know,
well, let's go ahead, and I think that what I'd like to do is kind of stick to the legislation end of it and talk about the bill itself. Although I do appreciate the comments on that, I just kind of wanted to stay on the actual legislation end of it. Diane, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Or Karen?
Yeah, yeah, my comments were very brief, but when we met last for the legislation committee, we did make some minor changes to the framework, and those were to reflect the fact that because there are so many bills, there are some times where we have to give our feedback immediately for it to have any impact whatsoever. So we wanted to make sure that the place, things were in place so that we could do so. If in fact we're told we need to send a letter on Wednesday by Townsend, we need to have the ability to do that. Secondly was to make the comment from the public to make sure as you hear things coming out that we're doing on legislation, which you've got the picture is primarily housing, that you give us feedback on housing throughout Danville. I encourage you. You can even take my puppies for a walk if you want, because I've walked the entire town now. The more you know about our town and how those bills are going to affect it, the better you're able to give us feedback. And third was because on our website, Ty Williamson worked so hard to make sure that we get information on the website so that you can see it, because affordability of housing is different from the number of houses that you build. And we're going to be addressing those in heavy duty language, let's put it that way, in many, many of the bills. So we want you to keep up with that and to know there's going to be a special place on the website. I don't know, Diane, what the title is on that website part, that page right now.
We have two places on the website where housing legislation is going to be highlighted and is currently up on our website. The first is under legislative advocacy under town council. And if a resident would like to go there, they can see that the updated framework is posted there, along with the letters on our opposition letters on SB 10 and SB 9. They are posted online. And then the second area is under our housing element. That is our new housing element, because as you mentioned, Councilmember Stepper, there is a lot of cross-referencing going on, and housing legislation is impacting the housing element and the numbers that we see. And we have the history of housing legislation and broken down into sections on how housing and the legislation has impacted what we're seeing as far as our numbers and what's happening to local control today.
Okay, thank you. Those are my three items. Nice summary, Diane.
Yeah, and to Karen's point as well, I think it's really important for everybody to have their input in advance and not after the bills go through. It's really important for all of us to be on the same page as far as what's important for our community and moving forward. With Diane's help and going through, and Townsend as well, to go through these bills and sift through them, and having the opportunity to sit down with a fellow council member. It's really imperative that we know what these bills are that are coming down the pike, that we are able to intercept them to make sure that we maintain local control. And as you mentioned, the meeting that we're going to have with the town talks is a great opportunity for people to ask those hard questions moving forward about what it means for these bills that are being put out there for local control, as well as housing and the RENA numbers that are being assigned. Robert, did you have another comment? Did I see your hand?
Yeah, I think you summed it up nicely, but Diane, on our website, will we see the actual legislation and then sort of an executive summary on how it either affects Danville or doesn't affect Danville?
We do have summaries on the housing element. We don't at this point have anything on the letters that we posted on SB 9 and SB 210. The summary that we are going to be putting up in the next few days is the housing package summary, because I think that's the biggie for us as far as the impacts to local control in Danville. So you can look for that in the next few days. And, we're running down parallel tracks as far as the outreach to our residents, and they are merging. It's all about housing legislation and how the housing legislation is impacting the RENA numbers and how that's going to factor into our housing element process. And, we're working on parallel tracks to get the message out.
Good. Thank you.
Absolutely. And a great job at that. So are there any more questions or comments? If not, I'd like to go ahead and move on to item number 8, which is a town council reports. And 8.1. It is the Stepper hour right now, because we're going to have Karen Stepper report on both of them. So Karen, if you'd like to report on that Heritage Resource Commission and also Tri-Valley, San Joaquin Valley Regional Rail Authority.
All right. Well, the people heading up our commission for HRC, which is the Heritage Resource, is Kim Holmes as the chair and Catherine Benvenuto as the vice chair, but they have not been meeting. So I'll tell you where they stand, because I had an opportunity to call Kim Holmes and get caught up with that, because they're going to start meeting after we have the commission meeting in April. They will, they're ready to go with Bret Hart Park, but the stopping of everything had to do with having funds for those things through because of COVID. So that will take up as soon as they have permission to do so. They've already written the words for two other ones, the Love House and the Osborne House, or as she calls it, her Aunt Jackie's, but that's a very, very historical residence. So they've written the language, and they're again ready to order when they have the funds in place and start meeting again. The next thing is that they will have three more in their back pocket, so to speak. The Xavier property, you know, on Harts, the Elliott House. This is not Elliott's the bar, but Elliott House right there. It's actually a CPA firm for a long time there on Diablo Road. And then the Fazio Fisher House near Lunardi's. So those will be the next three, but those will be after they start meeting again. So thank you to all the people who have served on that. It's really hard to be patient when you have such a long shelter in place. Okay, so my second report is on the Tri-Valley, San Joaquin Valley Regional Rail Authority, which is otherwise known as Valley Link. We spent quite a lot of time, a couple of hours last time, for the fact that you can't apply for federal funds that we need in order to keep going forward with this project unless you have all these steps in place for how you're going to treat everything from making sure that you're fair on what you put out there for everybody can bid on projects to who can, there's no alcohol and smoking in the workplace. So it got down to an awful lot of detail. So it's a chicken and the egg. You have to have all these projects and written before you can get and apply for them. So that was what we were approving. We had one little issue because somebody wanted to bring in minimum wage. And I said, that we're not talking about minimum wage. We're talking about the societal discussion. And the attorney agreed and said, no, that'll come up when you do personnel. By the way, there is a question of who's running it, and because people have moved in some of their jobs and the personnel is going to have to move, like it happened with, well, I guess with Recycle Smart, which used to have all its personnel under Walnut Creek. And this has this kind of the same issue. Everything's under LAFTA, which is the Livermore bus system. And because we work closely with that one, they're not our personnel. So there's going to be some changes in that and how it's set up, because we have some people that you don't want to have consultants in charge of consultants. So in order to avoid that, we need to have some personnel set up. We do have, new leadership, because Scott Hegarty, who's done an amazing job in transportation for many, many years, has the job is now Veronica she's the mayor of Stockton. She's doing a great job leading the committee. Again, everybody comes to all the committee meetings. So, a lot of money is owed to LAFTA because we pay them on a reimbursement. So it's kind of a strange kind of financial statements at this point. So, but anyway, things are going forward. So thank you.
Well, a thorough report. Thank you so much, Karen. And we're going to go ahead and move on to item 8.3. This gives the town council as well as the town an opportunity to report out on anything that's happening. Newell?
Just a small one. As you know, our friendship city, New Ross, Ireland, and County Wexford, they are really devastated with COVID and struggle, like many areas, to get vaccinations and things like that. They were hoping to do an exchange of some sort of St. Patrick's Day thing, but it didn't really come to fruition. But they did pass this along, and I will say it in Irish Gaelic. La Éile Padraig Sunrich, which is Happy St. Patrick's Day. They hope to see us somehow in October, and maybe I would go if we're allowed to go and things are in great shape, but we'll see. That's it.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that. I was wondering, I thought maybe you didn't want me to wear my, my hat or something. I didn't know, So, Karen.
Okay, so I just wanted to set a time in the future when we can come back and discuss about the farmer's market. I think that's our place to see the citizens. We're all vaccinated now. We've had beautiful days, gorgeous setup at the market. And I'd like to see the council back at some period of time on those Saturdays, because there's so many issues we discussed tonight that people want to talk to us about.
All right, but yeah, that's a good point. We probably should be, let's put that out there and figure out what we want to do. Robert.
No, I'm just gonna thank Rob for sending you the picture of the bridge in place. We've had a tough week, and it actually brought a smile to many of our faces because it looks great. I went down there to take a look at it, and that whole bridge and the both sides of the creek, absolutely spectacular. So sometimes we got to find a little bit of beauty in that little area.
Yes, very true, very true. Joe Calabrigo.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. As is probably obvious, I'm not a council member, but I talked to the mayor about this in advance. I just wanted to give the council a quick update. Next week on March the 22nd, the town, along with all of the cities in Contra Costa County, the county itself, and County Health Services is holding a Hope and Healing memorial event that's intended to recognize the 1-year anniversary of the first COVID-19 related death in Contra Costa County. It's going to be a virtual program, and the idea is that each of the communities in the county will do some sort of simultaneous dimming of lights, in addition to, on that day, flying our flags at half staff to commemorate that anniversary. In Danville, we are going to use our heritage old oak tree on Diablo Road, and we'll be activating the lights that are normally only used during the holidays. Our public information officer, Jeff Gillette, is working with Dave Castile to make this happen. This event is going to run all together about 30 minutes. It's going to be viewable on YouTube as well as on CCTV. So I wanted to let the council know that that was going to be coming up next week and that we would be participating.
And the time of that, Joe, and if anybody else wants to view this, is there going to be something sent out?
The time is set for, I believe it is 6 p.m. On the 22nd.
Okay. And we'll be getting information.
And we can send more information.
Perfect. Wonderful. And maybe people that are listening, if they'd like to tune in, they can also, are they able to watch? And if so, can they contact us via our website also to see what that link might be?
Again, my understanding is that there is a program which will be viewable. It's not going to be using a Zoom type platform. It'll be broadcast. It'll be shared on YouTube and it'll be shared on CCTV. That's okay. The extent of what I know, but we will be happy to send out additional information to all of you and to post it on the website.
Wonderful, wonderful. Are there any other updates, Dave? I don't think I've asked you. Are you fine? Is everybody else? We're all right. Well, then on that note, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you all for joining us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. Happy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. May the luck of the Irish be with you. Everybody have a wonderful evening. This meeting is adjourned.